Prepare yourself for a chilling journey to a desolate countryside, where the mournful sound of funeral horns echoes in the dead of night, and horrifying secrets lurk behind locked doors. Nhu returns to her hometown to attend her cousin's funeral, but the eerily silent village, adorned with white wreaths and mysterious statues, sends shivers down her spine. As a sinister plot for a ghost marriage unravels, can Nhu escape the trap set by her own family? Tune in to this gripping tale, where superstition and truth intertwine, keeping you on the edge of your seat. Now, dear listeners, please settle in for the story. The summer vacation had just begun, and everyone was thrilled beyond measure except for me. This morning, I was packing my bags, ready to travel to Leyte with my roommate, Lin An. Before we could set off, a call from my father shattered my excitement. He told me to come home for a funeral. My cousin had died in an accident. This cousin, though close in relation, was someone I barely remembered. I'd only met him once when we were kids, and we hadn't seen each other in years. Hearing about his sudden death in an accident left me quite shaken. After apologizing to Lin An, I hurriedly changed my bus ticket for a flight back home. When I arrived, my parents had already packed. Before I could even step inside the house, we were on our way to my hometown. My hometown is in the Mekong Delta, a place I hadn't visited in over a decade. The development here was astonishing, which somewhat eased the gloom of returning for such a somber occasion. A concrete road led into the village. As we entered, the bustling progress outside seemed to be cut off by an invisible barrier. The village was eerily quiet, broken only by the occasional bark of a dog. Every house had its doors locked, with weeds growing wildly in front, untouched for years. Coconut trees grew thickly, and despite it being the dry season, fallen leaves littered the ground. The trees obscured most of the houses, adding to the village's desolate atmosphere. Mom, why is there no one in the village? It's creepy. I clutched my travel pillow, asking my mother. Despite the cool air conditioning in the car, I felt an inexplicable chill. My mother, not being a local, was just as uneasy as I was. Only my father seemed unfazed. He replied casually, "Our hometown develops slowly. In recent years, anyone with some strength has gone to the city to work. Those who earn money buy houses and settle there. Only a few elderly people who can't work remain in the village. As they pass away year by year, hardly anyone is left." Woo. As soon as my father finished speaking, a mournful funeral horn sounded abruptly in the silent village. My mother and I jumped, nearly screaming. It was only 4 in the afternoon, but the overcast sky made it as dark as night. The sudden sound of the funeral horn in the stillness was truly terrifying. What the hell is that? Trying to scare us to death? An, I'm telling you, after the funeral tomorrow, we're leaving immediately. I don't want to stay in this creepy place another day. My father's face darkened, and he nodded, mumbling something inaudible. I couldn't help but ask, "Dad, what's going on? Are we lost?" There was only one main road into the village, so even though my father hadn't been back in years, he couldn't have taken a wrong turn. He hesitated before answering, "Your cousin died in a natural death, and so young. According to custom, they shouldn't hire a funeral band or hold the ceremony at home. Why are they doing it here? We had assumed we'd rest at home tonight, visit the funeral parlor tomorrow for the visitation, cremate, and bury him without holding a ceremony at home." But the sound of the funeral horn suggested otherwise. "Maybe it's another house," I ventured, though I knew the chances were slim. My father didn't respond, just floored the gas pedal, and in a flash, we were at the house's gate. Before we could step out, vibrant wreaths and white cloth hanging at the entrance caught our eyes. In front of the modest brick house were several wreaths. On the walls flanking the main door were 2 white paper banners, meant to be couplets. But they weren't couplets, they were blank, just 2 empty sheets of white paper. To the west of the house, a tarp shelter had been set up. The chilling sound of the funeral horn came from under the shelter. 2 gaunt old men, dressed in white, each held a horn, playing with fervor. There were no sounds of crying from the house, but flickering lights suggested many people were inside. As our car pulled up, a thin but alert old man emerged from the house. His hair was white, neatly combed, and he wore a black homemade obiba and glasses. At first glance, he seemed like a kindly village elder. "That's your second grandfather," my father said as he parked, referring to the old man. I knew of second grandfather. He was educated, a man of some learning, and highly respected in the village. For any event, joyful or sorrowful, people sought him to preside. My father grabbed a pack of cigarettes and hurried over. My mother and I followed. I called out, "Second grandfather." He stepped past my father, looked at me, and a strange glint flashed in his eyes. That look made my heart skip a beat, leaving me uneasy. "Is this New?" Instead of greeting my mother first, he pointed at me and asked my father. My father nodded, "Yes." Second grandfather asked, "Not married yet, right?" "Yes, she's still studying. Marriage is a long way off," my father answered honestly. As soon as he spoke, second grandfather's face grew serious, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. It wasn't a look of disdain for my being unmarried at my age, but rather one of regret or sorrow. I couldn't explain it, but it felt odd. "Stay at my place tonight. After the funeral tomorrow, go back," second grandfather said, turning to lead us inside. I glanced at my mother, who pulled my father, who was about to enter, and whispered, "What did second grandfather mean? Why does he seem so strange?" "Ang, my heart's been racing since we got here. After we pay our respects, let's go to town and find a hotel." Her words echoed my thoughts. Since entering the village, I'd felt uneasy, and it intensified at the house's gate. "Let's see how it goes." "Let's go in first," my father said, his expression grim. Clearly, he wasn't fond of this house either. Back then, my grandmother was biased, favoring my uncle. Not only did she dote on him, but she also often scolded and hit my father. Unable to bear it, my father left at 16 to work in the city. He thought working would free him from her, but she didn't let up. She took all the money he painstakingly saved, leaving him without even travel fare. After that, he stopped coming back. He returned once when he married my mother, and the second time was for my grandfather's funeral, bringing my mother and me. Including this trip, it was only my second time back. Holding my mother's hand, I followed my father inside. As we entered, my mother and I froze. On a long table in the living room stood a statue of an unknown deity. The statue was pitch black, with two eyes made of red paint, glass, or ruby gleaming coldly, staring at everyone who entered. At that moment, those red eyes were fixed on my mother and me. In that instant, my hair stood on end. My already chilled back now broke out in sweat. I gripped my mother's hand tightly, and she gripped mine back. I couldn't tell whose hand was trembling. "Second brother, second sister-in-law, you're back." As my mother and I stood in fear, a middle-aged woman emerged from a side room. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. "And is that you?" Seeing her, my mother relaxed slightly. "Yes, it's me. Sister, is this New?" My aunt pointed at me, asking. My mother nodded, and my aunt quickly pulled us into the room. Once inside, my mother asked urgently, "What's going on? Didn't they say Min died in an accident? Why hold the funeral at home?" There's a local superstition that those who die unnaturally carry heavy resentment and don't recognize kin, so their bodies shouldn't be brought home. If they die outside, they're buried outside to avoid bringing vengeance on the family. My aunt sighed heavily. That's true, but who can argue with mother? She insisted on holding the funeral at home, or she'd fall ill. What could we do? Fall ill? Didn't they say she's still healthy? Where is she, by the way? My mother asked. She went out, no one knows where, and didn't let anyone follow. You guys don't know. My aunt leaned closer, gesturing for me to close the door. I obediently shut it, and she pointed to a desk by the window, saying, "See that? I hadn't noticed before." but now I saw an incense burner on the desk. It was even stranger than the one outside. The one in the living room at least had a statue, but this one was covered in red cloth, tied with red strings at both ends, completely concealing what was inside. I flinched, instinctively stepping back behind my mother. "Aunt, is this what grandmother worships?" My aunt nodded, lowering her voice as if afraid of being overheard. 10 years ago, your grandmother fell ill and rambled for days. After recovering, she brought back these two things from who knows where and started worshipping them. She burns 3 incense sticks daily without fail. After about 3 years, she began treating people's illnesses. You know, those kinds of ailments hard to tell if it's real or not, but she cured many. Now she's a famous medium in the area. So when Min died in an accident, she insisted on holding the funeral at home, and no one dared object. Goodness, why didn't you tell us all these years? And this house didn't and send money years ago to rebuild. Why hasn't it been done? Despite my father's resentment, my grandmother was still his mother, and he couldn't neglect her. Every Mid-Autumn festival and TT, he sent gifts and money. Don't mention it. I nearly got beaten to death over the house. Mother said as long as she's alive, this house stays. Sister, don't you see? Min died so young, yet the house is full of mourners, and not one is crying. At this, my aunt choked up, but quickly stifled her sobs. Seeing her strange behavior, I couldn't help asking, "Aunt, why can't we cry?" She shushed me, listening for noises outside, then whispered even lower, "Your grandmother forbids it." "What, why? Doesn't she love Min?" My grandmother favored boys over girls and adored Min, her only grandson. My aunt once said Min's death was like losing half her life. Yet she not only didn't cry but banned others from doing so. I don't know. Some relatives came and cried, but she scolded and chased them away. Then she left, who knows where. "Where's Uncle?" my mother asked, after a moment's thought. "Who knows where that bastard is? The one who should die doesn't, but the one who shouldn't does." My aunt spat, clearly resentful. I knew a bit about my uncle. He wasn't entirely sane but not completely deranged either. He could speak and manage daily life, just missing a few screws. While others went to work in the city, he stayed in the village with my grandmother. He'd run around like a child every day. Yet, despite his condition, my grandmother doted on him, giving him the best of everything since childhood. Honestly, I still couldn't fathom how someone like him fathered Min. As we spoke, a voice came from outside. An authoritative old woman's voice, likely talking to my father. My aunt shushed us, whispering, "Mother's back. Sister, after paying respects, come sleep at my place, and we'll go straight to the funeral parlor tomorrow." Yes, yes, yes. At this point, my mother and I didn't care about pleasantries, we just wanted to leave this place. Everything here was too strange, the air so oppressive it was hard to breathe. Just as my mother agreed, before we could step out, the door was pushed open. A gaunt old woman entered. My grandmother. She wore an old obiba, but what stood out was her hair. It should have been white, but it was jet black, starkly contrasting her withered, bark-like face. What shocked me most wasn't this, but the red flower pinned in her hair. An old woman wearing a red flower was odd enough, let alone at her grandson's funeral. It was utterly absurd. But despite the strangeness, I didn't dare say anything. New's back. "Oh, my darling granddaughter, let me look at you. Truly, our New is as beautiful as a flower." My grandmother grabbed my hand, her voice brimming with joy, almost excited. Her cold, bark-like hand made me deeply uncomfortable. Still, I managed to call out, "Grandmother." Hearing me, she grew even happier, showing no trace of grief for her grandson's death. "Oh, so good, so good. Here, take this, and keep it close. Don't burn it until after your cousin's burial, it'll keep you safe." She pulled a yellow sachet from her pocket, and, without waiting for my refusal, stuffed it into my hand. I squeezed it. It seemed to contain dried grass or flowers, rustling softly. The rough embroidery suggested it was handmade. Since she meant well, I couldn't refuse. I thanked her and tucked it into my jacket pocket. Seeing me keep the sachet, she seemed very pleased, but her hand didn't let go. She pulled me toward my mother and said firmly, "LT, tonight you in and stay at Toot's place. Nhu stays with me. My darling granddaughter rarely visits, so she must stay." Her words made every pore in my body scream in protest. I wanted to refuse, but my mother spoke first. "Mother, how about after the funeral tomorrow, you come with us to our place for TT? You can spend time with Nhu then. There's no space here tonight, so let her stay with us at Aunt's." "No, Nhu stays tonight." My grandmother refused outright. "Why? She's a girl and can't stay up guarding the coffin. She's timid, how could she handle it? If not, all three of us will stay." I said no, and that's final. "There's no room for you two. Go to Toots." My grandmother, initially calm, suddenly turned fierce, unyielding. I realized what meant she was truly intimidating. "Grandmother, can I stay with you tomorrow? I'm not used to this place." At this point, I didn't care how fierce she was. I couldn't stay here alone. This place was too eerie. Despite the people in the house, I couldn't shake my fear. Seeing I wanted to leave, a fierce glint flashed in her eyes, but quickly vanished. She sighed, no longer insisting, and went to the desk, pulling 7 incense sticks from a drawer. She said softly, "Come, darling, light incense for the Buddha lady. She'll protect you from misfortune." I didn't believe in these things but didn't object to others' beliefs. As long as she didn't make me stay, I'd light the incense. Taking the sticks, I lit them and blew them out with my mouth. As I did, she suddenly scolded, "Darling, don't blow out the incense with your mouth. Your impure breath will taint it, and the Buddha lady won't be pleased." What? I didn't know. Should I relight them? I panicked. I'd never lit incense before and didn't know the rules, so I blew when they didn't go out. Forget it, forget it. For my sake, the Buddha lady will forgive you." Hearing her mention the Buddha lady repeatedly, I glanced at the red cloth-covered object and wondered. I bowed to it and inserted the incense. As I did, my head spun, my legs wobbled, and I nearly fell. My mother, alarmed, rushed to support me. "Nhu, what's wrong? Don't scare me." I tried to wave it off, but my grandmother pushed my mother aside and helped me to the bed. What a sin. This is retribution. It must be the Buddha lady's punishment. Lying on the bed, I cursed inwardly. Retribution. I lit incense for her, Buddha lady, and she punishes me. "LT, you and in go to Toots now. Leave Nhu, I'll resolve her calamity." My mother panicked. Like me, she didn't believe in this nonsense and tried to pull me up, but I felt paralyzed, unable to move. "Mom, I can't get up. My body's numb, my limbs weak. Why can't I move?" I nearly cried. What was this madness? Had I known, I'd never have come, even if it meant being scolded to death. "Ang en, Ang en." My mother shouted for my father, who rushed in upon hearing her. "Ang en, look at Nhu. She suddenly can't move. What do we do? What? She was fine, how can she not move?" My father was baffled. "I don't know. Mom said it's the Buddha lady's doing." "Isn't that nonsense? There's no Buddha lady. Hurry, carry Nhu to the hospital." My mother pushed my father to take me. "Don't touch her." Before he could, my grandmother shouted, "If you don't want something to happen to Nhu, put her down." "Mother, what's going on? She was fine, how did this happen?" "Toot, take them away." Instead of answering, she yelled at my aunt. My aunt hesitated, then pulled my father. "Second brother, sister-in-law, go to my place first. Nhu might really." Mother's treated many people these years, and she's effective. She might have a way, effective superstition. My father snapped, reaching to carry me. But my grandmother was faster, pressing hard on my chest. I cried out in pain, then felt my body ease. I could move my hands, though my strength hadn't fully returned. "Dad, I think I can move a little," I said, tugging his sleeve, hardly believing it. Her press had been beyond my understanding. "You can move." My father, still worried, wanted to take me to the hospital. And, I'll say it again. If you don't want harm to come to Nhu, leave her with me here. I guarantee she'll be fine. Mother, my father hesitated, clearly torn. Go. Nhu's my only granddaughter. Would I harm her? My aunt also urged us. Though scared, I eventually said, Mom, Dad, go to Aunt's first. I'll stay tonight. As a psychology student, I never believed in this stuff. I wanted to see what my grandmother was up to. That press was startling, but I was sure it wasn't the Buddha lady's wrath. Nhu, don't worry, I'll be fine. With my insistence, my parents reluctantly left with my aunt. Not long after, the funeral horn stopped. Darling, I'll make dinner. Rest and don't be afraid. I'm here, my grandmother said. Strangely, after her press, my body, which had been immobile, gradually recovered. Soon, I could get out of bed. Glancing outside, I grabbed my phone to call DG Ben. He was a special friend. We'd been through life and death situations, and as a police officer, I trusted him completely. Today's events were so bizarre I couldn't wait to tell him. But when I opened Zalo, my phone had no signal. The screen showed an X, not a single bar. I took my phone outside, but no matter what, there was no signal. Oddly, I'd used my phone when we entered the village. Lynn had messaged me, and I'd replied. Why was there no signal now? Darling, where are you going? As I persisted, trying to get a signal up the road, my grandmother called out. Oh, my phone has no signal. I was going to try up the road. Don't bother, it's useless. If you need to call, there's a landline in Thine House. Oh, I mumbled, not bothering to call. Returning, I noticed the two old men playing the funeral horns had left, but their horns remained on the table, looking oddly out of place. Funeral horns were their livelihood, usually kept close and stored carefully when not in use, as instruments could be damaged if mishandled. Even if not high-end, they could still break. Those two old men were too careless, leaving them out. I didn't dwell on it and returned to the room. By now, it was pitch black outside. The house had only one low-wattage bulb. The incense burner and altar from earlier were gone, as were the wreaths in the yard. This puzzled me. Customs vary, but I remembered at my grandfather's funeral, the altar stayed up overnight until the burial. Why was Min's altar already cleared? Nhu, why didn't you go with your parents? Lost in thought, second grandfather's voice came from behind. I turned, shrugged helplessly, and said my grandmother wanted me to stay for company. He clearly didn't believe me, glanced toward the kitchen, and whispered, call your father to come get you. My already uneasy heart grew more anxious at his words. Second grandfather, my phone has no signal. Do you have one? Can I borrow it to call? Second uncle, what are you doing? It's dark, and you're still here. Before he could reply, my grandmother emerged from the kitchen, her voice low and scolding, carrying an unchallengeable authority. He hesitated, looked at me, sighed, and left with his hands behind his back. Darling, talk less with that old man. He's no good. Min's accident was his fault. What? Second grandfather caused it. Why not report it to the police? I was stunned. Even if Min wasn't his biological grandson, he was still family. How could he harm him? Moreover, second grandfather seemed upright. Though stern, he didn't scare me, unlike my grandmother, who made me want to keep my distance. Report to the police? What good would that do? Darling, you're my only granddaughter now. You mustn't get into trouble. Stay in the house and avoid that old man. Yes, I mumbled, entering the room and eyeing the landline on the desk. After a moment's thought, I called my father. I needed to reassure him and my mother. He'd reached my aunt's place in town. Nhu, you're okay, good. Wait for me, I'm coming to get you. Hearing I was fine, he wanted to pick me up. Recalling second grandfather's words, I decided to leave. As I waited, Heavy rain suddenly poured outside. It started lightly, but soon became a deluge, with large drops pounding down. Within minutes, the yard was flooded. Looking at the rain, I worried for my father. It was a half-hour drive from town, longer in this weather. Driving at night could be dangerous. After hesitating, I called him back. I told him to turn back, it was too risky at night. He hadn't left yet, saying both rear tires were flat, and the car had only one spare. He and my uncle were looking for a repair shop to buy new ones. I told him not to come if the car was broken. He started to say something, but the call cut off with a beep. I tried again, but the landline wouldn't connect. Something was wrong with it. Annoyed, I stood at the door, watching the rain pour, my mood for a rain watching gone. That evening, I ate with my grandmother and went to bed early. Before sleeping, I noticed the 2 funeral horns still on the table in the shelter, untouched. I wanted to ask her about it, but seeing her face and the red flower in her hair, I lost the urge to talk. That night, I slept on the same bed as her, each at one end, sharing a blanket. I only took off my jacket, keeping my jeans on not because I was unhygienic, but because it felt safer. Darling, you're 23 this year, right? Have you been in love? In the pitch black night, I was playing on my phone, thinking she was asleep, when she suddenly asked. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. I loved someone once, but we broke up. Thinking of that relationship, I felt a pang of sadness. What? You've been in love? Did you sleep with him? She sat up as if hearing something shocking. Her question made me very uncomfortable. Even my mother wouldn't ask something so blunt. Did you sleep with him? Seeing my silence, she pressed, her tone harsher. I pouted, muttering, "No, darling, my good girl, go to sleep." Hearing my answer, her voice softened. There was a rustling sound, and she seemed to lie back down. Her odd question killed my mood for gaming. I sent a long message to DG Bin, recounting today's strange events. With no signal, it didn't send, but I knew it would once I got a signal. Putting my phone away, I thought I wouldn't sleep, but I drifted off soon after closing my eyes. Woo, deep in sleep, a sharp funeral horn pierced the midnight silence. The sound cut through the quiet like a blade, nearly scaring me witless. I screamed, pulling the blanket over myself. Someone patted it gently. "Darling, don't be afraid. Ignore it. I'm here, no one can harm you." Her voice calmed me, and I peeked out from under the blanket. Is it the 2 old men playing the funeral horns? The sound came from just outside, so I assumed it was them. Luckily, this was the countryside with few people. In the city, the police hotline would have been flooded. Old men? What old men? What nonsense are you talking? Just as I calmed down, her question threw me into confusion again. What the hell was going on? The 2 old men playing the funeral horns under the shelter this afternoon. If the horns weren't still sounding, I'd have run, rain or no rain, just to get out of here. What nonsense! There were no old men playing horns this afternoon. She scolded, turned on the light, slipped on her shoes, and went to the desk, grabbing a handful of incense ash from the burner. I watched her, grabbed my phone from under the pillow, turned on the flashlight and followed. The living room was pitch black. Outside, the wind and rain howled, mixing with the funeral horns, chilling my spine. After a moment's thought, I mimicked her, grabbing a handful of ash. I followed her outside. It was midnight, and the rain had flooded up to my calves. The rain showed no sign of stopping. Despite no moonlight, the rain made the path faintly visible. I shone my phone's light and saw 2 figures playing horns under the shelter. "Grandmother, look." I swallowed hard, pointing. "I see. Don't be afraid, darling. It's that second uncle playing tricks. Stay here. Don't move." She charged out, small but agile, and threw the ash toward the shelter. As the ash fell, the horn stopped. I saw 2 dark figures floating in the air, fleeing toward the road. I chased them, throwing my handful of ash. After throwing it, I shone my light on the ground. No footprints. Looking back at the shelter, The 2 horns remained on the table. "Grandmother, do you see those horns?" She'd said she didn't see the old man, but I didn't believe she missed the horns. When Min was alive, he learned to play the funeral horn for a while. Those were his. I plan to burn them for him tomorrow. Min's? Then who were the old men? Hamph, it's that second uncle's doing. Daring to play tricks in front of the great immortal. Overestimating himself. She snorted, leading me back inside. Back in the house, neither of us could sleep. She told me about Min. In short, Min was pitiful, never had a good day alive, and she couldn't let him suffer in death. At the time, I thought, what suffering could there be after death? At most, burn some extra paper money. But the next afternoon, I understood what she meant by not letting Min suffer. She wanted me to enter a ghost marriage with Min. Only then did I realize why we didn't go to the funeral parlor that morning, why she insisted I stay last night, and why she asked that question before bed. It was all to make me marry Min in a ghost marriage. I felt like the sky had collapsed. My phone still had no signal, so I couldn't call for help. The rain had stopped, but the water reached my knees, making it impossible for cars or even people to pass. I couldn't leave, and my father couldn't come get me. The landline was broken, unusable. Second grandfather didn't show up. In fact, no one came to the house since morning. The plan to visit Min at the funeral parlor for the final viewing, cremation, and burial was forgotten. I cautiously asked my grandmother if we were going to the funeral parlor. She replied, "Wait." By afternoon, when I pressed, she finally revealed she wanted me to enter a ghost marriage with Min. "Grandmother, I'm Min's cousin, his direct cousin. Even if he's dead, I can't marry him." "What's wrong with that? You're cousins, not siblings. Besides, in the old days, cousins married all the time. It's no big deal." I was stunned by her words. Was this my own grandmother? Yesterday, she called me darling, but today, she looked at me like prey. "Grandmother, I'll say it again, I can't marry Min. If you force me, I'll call the police." I threatened her. She didn't use a phone, so she might not know mine had no signal. I'd heard that even without a signal, phones could still call emergency numbers. "Hey call the police if you want. They're over 30 kilometers away. Let's see who comes to arrest me." She grabbed my arm and dragged me into the room. Don't underestimate her age, she was strong. I couldn't resist. As we entered, I heard a click. She'd locked the door. I rushed to pull it, but it wouldn't budge. "Grandmother, what are you doing?" "Open the door. This is illegal." "Open it." I pounded on the door, shouting, but she acted as if she'd vanished, not responding. "Damn old woman, open the door. You monster, I'd rather die than let you have your way." As soon as I said it, I realized my mistake. If I died, wouldn't that fulfill her wish for a ghost marriage with Min? I couldn't die. I'd wreck her house instead. I turned, glaring at the Buddha lady covered in red cloth on the desk, and shouted, "If you don't open the door, I'll smash your Buddha lady." I didn't believe in this stuff and doubted she worshipped a real Buddha. I'd wanted to see what was under the cloth, but she was always around, so I didn't dare. Now was my chance. I listened. There were sounds outside, but not toward me. She seemed to be doing something, possibly cutting paper. "I know you're out there. You have 1 minute to open the door, or I'll smash your Buddha lady." No response. I lost it. Anger overpowered fear. I grabbed the cloth-covered object and unwrapped it. Min's mother died shortly after giving birth, possibly not from illness, but it was too late to investigate. I called DG Bin, but no one answered. My parents' phones were off. I had to believe my grandmother's photo now. Without thinking, I called the police, but as it connected, she burst in, snatched my phone, and smashed it on the floor. "Calling the police? Give up. In 2 hours, you'll obediently marry my grandson." She left the room. I picked up my phone. Its screen shattered, unusable. DG Bin called, but I couldn't answer. The call dropped, and he tried again a few times. I could only stare at the broken phone, frantic. He must be worried, unable to reach me. In my panic, I noticed the window was now boarded up, with sounds of nails being hammered. I freaked out. She'd blocked the window. Did she know I planned to escape through it? Open the door. Let me out, you monster. Let me out, or you won't die peacefully. You're a venomous snake disguised as a Buddha. Aren't you afraid of the 18 levels of hell? I cursed and kicked the door, but it wouldn't budge. I smashed everything in the room, but she seemed deaf to it. About 2 hours later, through the window's gap, I saw it was pitch black outside. She finally opened the door. I pushed her aside and ran out, but at the living room door, I despaired. The main door was locked, and behind it stood a middle-aged man in red, towering like a dark pillar, his eyes predatory, fixed on me, his tongue licking his lips, hands clenching excitedly. My psychology teacher had described such a look and behavior. He wanted to rape me. I backed away. Between fleeing and waiting for rescue, I could only return to the room and wait. But before I could, I was pushed from behind. Something was draped over me. Looking down, it was red cloth. Before I could react, another red cloth covered my head. I yanked it off, glaring at her. Are you done? Do you know this is illegal? Darling, don't be silly. I don't even fear ghosts. Why would I fear the law? Be good, perform the ceremony, consummate the marriage, and your parents will be safe. You're their daughter. You must dispel their evil spirits. You don't want them dying because of you, right? Consummate. As she spoke, the towering man muttered, his voice eager. I turned to him, his predatory gaze intensifying. Recalling her words, Mary Min, bear her a grandson. I understood. A grandson would come from her son, not a ghost marriage, but forcing me, a non-blood granddaughter, to marry her son, to continue their lineage. I nearly collapsed. I thought of Min's mother. Was she in my position back then? No, I couldn't wait to die. Looking at the black statue with red eyes on the table, I got an idea. She didn't know my plan, busy preparing the ceremony. When done, she sat by the 8 immortal table, telling me and my uncle to kneel and bow. I obeyed. After we finished, she smiled, whispered something to my uncle, and left. As soon as she did, he couldn't restrain his animalistic urges and lunged at me. I was prepared and dodged. I grabbed a small wooden hammer from the table and struck a small drum. It was probably used for her fortune-telling, just for show. I'd eyed it earlier. The sound made him pause, unsure of my intent. Seizing the moment, I grabbed the black statue with red eyes. Now I saw it was a 7-tailed black fox. No time to study it. I held it, moving it slowly before my uncle, like a clock's second hand. Uncle Ann, I called softly. Seeing his eyes grow dazed, I sighed in relief. I'd bet right. I'd done hypnosis before, but never in this setting, on a mentally unstable person. Who's there? You beast, daring to sneak attack the great immortal. I'll fight you. As I neared success, she screamed from outside, waking my uncle. He lunged at me like a madman. I couldn't dodge this time. He pinned me to the floor, tearing my clothes. I fought, but he was too strong. He pressed me down with his legs, one hand pinning my wrists above my head, the other ripping my sweater, then my bra. The cold floor stung my skin. I screamed and cursed, but he didn't care. Boom! As I despaired, tears falling, the main door was kicked open. I turned to see a Rain Man at the door. Seeing my uncle pinning me, he flew forward, kicking him off. He pulled me up, shielding me. Only then did I realize the Rain Man was DG Ben. DG Ben, I cried joyfully, tears streaming harder. Don't be afraid. Your parents are safe. Step aside, let me handle this beast. He took off his soaked jacket. Crying, I nodded, clutching his jacket and stepping aside. I couldn't help, so I stayed out of his way. My uncle, enraged at the interruption, charged like a wild animal. They were the same height, but my uncle was stronger. Luckily, DG Bin knew martial arts, and they were evenly matched. You beast, I'll fight you. As I watched their fight, my grandmother suddenly charged with a cleaver. I reacted, throwing DG Bin's jacket over her head, pinning her down. Her small frame was engulfed by the large jacket, and she couldn't swing the cleaver. I held her tightly, not daring to let go. I knew her strength even injured. She was formidable. I pressed her down, keeping her from rising. Meanwhile, my uncle couldn't match DG Bin and was subdued. Police sirens approached. I looked at DG Bin, and he looked at me, a smile on his lips. No, it's okay now. Those simple words brought tears again. It's okay now. At that moment, I love you or I care about you couldn't compare to it's okay now. My grandmother and uncle were arrested. I asked DG Bin, surprised, isn't it true that mentally ill people can't be arrested? Mentally ill? Yes, but your uncle isn't. What? I was stunned. Our family always thought he was mentally unwell, which is why he never married. How was he not? He was mentally ill years ago but recovered long ago. They kept up the act for benefits. Remember the statue in the house? What's with it? I always found it odd but couldn't pinpoint why. Its eyes, combined with the incense she burned, could induce hypnosis. The people she cured were poisoned by your uncle first, then she healed them, making her famous. Your parents and aunt's family were his doing. He hid in your father's car trunk, went to your aunts, knocked them out, and sent the photo to your grandmother. Speaking of the photo, I remembered my phone. My phone had no signal. Was that her too? He smiled and nodded. Yes. Did she give you a sachet? It clicked. With the sachet, my phone had no signal. After I threw it out, the signal returned. She must have seen me toss it and smashed my phone. Understanding everything, I didn't feel relieved but chilled. From Min's death, she'd planned to trap me, hiding a signal jammer in the sachet, filled with dried grass. I couldn't tell. What chilled me more was that all her patients were women, and my uncle never married. I didn't dare think further. Leaving the village, I held DG Bin's hand tightly. He didn't say how he got through the flood, but his soaked jacket told me his effort and care. Oh, I forgot to mention the two men playing funeral horns that night weren't strangers but my grandmother's lovers, and my seeing them float away. Laughable now. Second grandfather later explained they were part of the village's funeral band, skilled at playing horns and walking on stilts. That night, they wore white stilts, and in the dark, I thought they were floating. Their goal was to make me trust my grandmother, aiding her plan. But I didn't comply. Second, grandfather knew her intentions when we arrived, but was too afraid to act openly, only urging us to leave. My parents' rescue was thanks to him reporting it in town. Unfortunately, delays kept him from saving me sooner. Finally, a word of advice: superstition harms people, never believe it. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories.